Welcome back. Well, the recent announcement that the proposed VAT hike has been scrapped has sent ripples through the South African economy. As we ponder what comes next in the absence of the VAT increase, the pressure is rising on the finance minister to identify sustainable alternative revenue streams. To help us navigate this complex situation and understand the potential pathways forward, we're joined by Gilad Isaacs, the Executive Director of the Institute for Economic Justice. Thank you so much for your time, Gilad. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of what is next, firstly, is the hike officially gone, or are there still processes that need to be followed, and can those be done before the 1st of May?
It's a more complicated question than it sounds. So it's unclear, legally speaking, whether the minister can in fact cancel the hike. That's because under the law, once the minister makes the announcement as part of his budget speech, it sets that hike in motion to come into effect on the announced date. And the law does not allow the minister to make a follow-up announcement to reverse that. What I think likely to happen, though, is that SARS and everyone else will follow through on the minister's follow-up announcements and won't implement the VAT hike. That action, though, is questionable in terms of the legal process. So the only way that the legal process could be followed legitimately is if a money's amendment bill, a rates bill, is tabled, which leaves the VAT rate at its existing level. But there's no way of that being accomplished before May 1st. The only other option is if the High Court, in a case brought by the DA and the EFF, declares the provision in the Act which allows the minister to increase the rate through announcement as unconstitutional, and we'll get that outcome early next week.
And talking about those processes, Gilad, what does this mean in terms of the budget we currently have? Could we see a budget 3.0 perhaps?
So what we've seen is the National Treasury has left the fiscal framework, so the overall spending levels and tax levels as is, but has said it will retable a new division of the revenue and appropriations bill, which are the bills which actually allocate the expenditure. So in a sense, we're getting a budget 2.5 from them.
That's actually quite interesting that you talk about budget 2.5, where it looks like they're looking to see if they can eke out any more revenue rather than the expenditure side. And it's quite interesting because the DA has actually said, let's look at expenditure cuts. But is the ANC at this point saying, no, we want those to stay as is, but let's actually look at another source of revenue. But also I'm wondering within that, because there's so much urgency in that, how far could they go in getting that extra revenue?
Yeah, so there's clearly a schism here with the DA's long-standing agenda is to accelerate the austerity, which we've seen over the last 10 years, so to increase budget cuts. The rest of the government of national unity and the other parties who were a part of the announcement yesterday, so that's Action SA, for instance, that's outside of the coalition government, they came out quite firmly to say their expectation is no budget cuts, and to rather see the existing levels of expenditure. The National Treasury, though, in its own statement, seemed to imply a position closer to that of the DA, which was to say that there would be a need for expenditure cuts. What we're talking about is a really small share of the overall budget. In the upcoming year, it is 13.5 billion. That is 0.5%. That's probably mainly already covered by the increased revenue. So SARS in the last financial year received about 9 billion more than it expected. So we're already the majority of the way there in terms of the immediate thought. So there's really no need for any drastic action. And there are revenue alternatives which the National Treasury has, and which the majority in Parliament are very clearly saying to it, we expect you to make use of alternative revenue.
And talking about those alternatives, Gilad, would you say that the politicking at play is getting in the way of, the members in government to reach a consensus?
Yeah, I think that it's a tricky political situation, because what you have is various constituencies not wanting to see any revenue raised from entities which are a part of their support base. So the DA, the National Treasury, and parts of the ANC highly reluctant to increase the taxes on the wealthy, to introduce increased tax on wealth, on corporations, and so on. At the same time, you have other parties all willing to exactly within a coalition government how it will resolve itself.
Well, we will be keeping a close eye on these developments in the next week. Thank you so much for your time, Gilad. I do understand that there were some connectivity issues, but thank you. We did get about 99% of what you had to say. Really appreciate your time. That was the Institute for Economic Justice Director, Gilad Isaacs.